Hello there, my name is Dick Bolger. You might recognize me from my mugshot on the 10 o'clock news. Today we're going to go over proper workplace behavior. In this mandatory training video, sexual harassment. Is it really though? Let's take a look at this first scenario and see if you can spot what they did wrong. That alcohol could most definitely stain her dress, and it looks expensive. This is how the scenario should have gone. See, he's helping her dry off. Nothing wrong there. Let's take a look at this next scenario.
Hey, Felix.
Hi, speaking.
All right. Most of you are probably thinking, there's nothing wrong here. But let's take a look at what should have happened.
Hi, speaking.
Hi. You know that blonde in administration?
Blonde?
I've got a date with her.
Who hasn't?
Say she shaves herself down below.
You always want to show interest in what your coworkers are up to. And, if possible, catch up on the latest gossip. Let's look at this next one.
All right, ladies, cut the gabbing.
Okay, seems innocent enough. But let's look at what should have happened.
All right, ladies, cut the gabbing.
Well, you shouldn't have stuck it out in traffic.
You want to make sure to let your coworkers know that you appreciate them and their bodies, and that everyone knows who's responsible for your actions, because it most certainly isn't you. Alright, let's take a look at this last one.
He never does.
What?
Say hello for you.
So this one is a little more obvious. Hugging in the workplace can be a tricky thing. It might make some people feel uncomfortable. So this is how the situation should have gone.
You're wearing black underwear.
If you're going to lose your job, at least make it count. You know, go all out. That way it's worth it. Well, I thank you for watching, as doing this took time off of my sentence, and I hope you've learned a thing or two about proper workplace behavior. And remember to always ask, sexual harassment, is it really though? What is up, everyone? Let me just get situated here. Well, welcome to VHS on Tape. My name is Keith, and on this channel I do movie reviews for horror movies that came out in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. If that sounds like something you think you'd enjoy, and I'm pretty sure it is, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Also, click the bell icon, that way you'll be notified when I upload a new video. And hey, if you think this is good, hit that like button as well. Oh, and also, make sure to stick around till the end for some fun facts. Well, I hope everyone had a good Halloween. I ended up going as a cowboy with a little bit of a twist. It was the easiest costume to do because I pretty much had almost everything but the hat, and I'm a big fan of easy. Show of hands who has a fear of elevators. Alright, well then do I have a treat for you today. We will be looking at Die Lift. Die Lift is a film from the Netherlands that came out on May 11th, 1983 in the Netherlands, but it didn't actually hit the States until July 4th, 1985. It has a running time of 1 hour and 35 minutes. It was written and directed by Dick Maas. He also directed Sint and Amsterdam. For those of you that don't speak Danish, Die Lift translates into the elevator, in the haunted house that drips blood on Dracula's ghost. So there you go, a little language lesson for you. So, are you ready to hear me butcher some Dutch names? Alright, well then, let's get into the movie that is Die Lift. The movie starts off with some pretty decent music as we see the title of the movie, and I gotta say that I dig the color they picked for the title. Not enough movies use nice, bright colors for their titles. Then we see an elevator go by before seeing this sign and cutting to this lady laughing. I don't know if it's meant to be obnoxious, but it sure is. Granted, if you do a close-up of anyone laughing, it's going to come across as obnoxious. See, obnoxious. Then we see this group. Apparently the two guys are farmers, and at first I thought the two ladies were their wives, rich farmers, younger wives, but later we'll see why I'm pretty sure they're actually prostitutes. And we see that they're having a great time. As they're getting ready to leave, we get some more cool music along with this nice shot of 3 elevators. And I have to say, I like everything about this shot. The color grading, the lighting, the music, just everything. After they get into D-Lift, some lightning strikes the building and D-Lift stops. We then see the restaurant staff finding out that D-Lift is stuck. Then cut to them talking about how hot it is before this guy tries to get a little lovin', while the other guy wonders if anyone is going to notice that they're stuck. Cut to the staff looking at D-Lift when the power comes back on, but D-Lift doesn't move. Cut back to these 4, and this guy really is making the best of a bad situation. See, now I'm pretty sure only a prostitute wouldn't mind having sex within a foot of 2 other people. And we get this shot of her compact, which is really, really cool, and I have no idea how they did it. As those 2 are banging, the other guy gets sick, and the staff keeps trying to get into D-Lift. Then the rest of the group ends up passing out as they are trying to figure out what's going on. When D-Lift starts moving again, the staff races to make sure everyone is alright. When the doors open, we don't actually see what happened to the people, but apparently it's not good. And when I first saw this, I was like, okay, that's obviously not a real ambulance. Do they really expect us to buy that? But then we see that it's not supposed to be a real ambulance, and I was like, okay, that's actually a pretty clever transition to this scene where we meet Saskia Adelaar, played by Josine van Dalsum. You'll probably recognize her from Laat maar zitten and Kant en Broek. Yeah. We see her handling the kids before meeting her husband, Felix Adelaar, played by Hoob Staple. And I'm sure you recognize him from Amsterdam and the hit TV shows Fick in Rotterdam and Zwarte Tulp. We find out that Felix got a shiner because he was smiling at some guy's wife. Next, while they're eating breakfast, Felix's boss calls him and asks him to go and check out D-Lift from the night before. Then we get some good music with this shot of this building sign again. Here we find out that Felix is a lift mechanic. The guy at the front desk calls down the building caretaker, and we meet Bush, played by Paul Giesk. He was in Geschenk und de Hemmet. Man, I am just killing these Dutch names. We learned that what happened last night was that the air conditioning stopped working, and those farmers and their prostitutes almost died. I also think the pink lights look really cool in D-Lift. That was a side note. Then we meet Ravenstein, and he gives one hell of a job title.
Nathan Construction, Management and Development. Real Estate, Benelux Exploitation.
He's played by Piet Romer, I think. Look, I'm kind of just guessing at this point. IMDb isn't helping me out much here either. They have the credits in Dutch, and they give titles instead of names. Take the caretaker, for instance. Instead of having him listed by his character name, Bush, they list it as Huismeester, which means caretaker. And one of them is Beheerder, which means administrator, so I'm going to go ahead and say that that's this guy. And on that note, I'm going to stop introducing non-lead actors because I can't figure out who they are. Felix tells him that there's nothing wrong with D-Lift. Ravenstein says that's impossible since 4 people ended up in the hospital, so Felix says he'll run some tests. As they go to take D-Lift up, this guy runs in, and he works in the building. Bush tells him there's a variety of companies in the building, including a real estate firm, but that most of it is actually empty. When Felix opens up the control panel, he tells Bush that he doesn't see anything obviously wrong with it, and that lightning definitely didn't strike it. Bush asks about another component, and Felix tells him,
Oh, the microprocessors in there. That's, what guides the lift.
Oh, yeah.
and as Felix starts to roll another one up, because, the best way to show someone that you're listening to them is to focus all of your attention on rolling up a cig. Bush brings up a coworker of Felix's named Brooker, who had spent a lot of time doing a checkup on D-Lift not too long ago, but apparently went wacko. Then cut to Felix working on a toy for his son when his wife comes home, and they have a brief conversation about his son that I love.
Did you talk to his teacher? See, he's not as dumb as you think he is.
Then his wife asks about D-Lift, and Felix says that its systems were perfect, so it must have just been a short. When he's about to throw away a bottle cap, his wife stops him and says she's trying to collect 100 of them for a chance to win a trip to Hawaii. Then we head back to the building D-Lift is in and meet Mr. Vink. He's talking to a real estate agent about purchasing an apartment for his mother who is 92. He's asking about the views since he's blind. When he does go to sign the paperwork, they throw in a little part that makes me think that the agent is ripping him off.
For our administration.
I don't know, it's just kind of a weaselly sound to make. After they get the paperwork taken care of, Mr. Vink heads out to D-Lift. After the doors open, we see that D-Lift isn't actually there, and just when Mr. Vink is about to step in, the agent runs out and gives him his pen that he forgot. And notice how the doors are closed again right now? It's almost like it knew it couldn't let the agent see that D-Lift wasn't actually there when the doors are opened up. After the agent leaves, the doors open up again, and Mr. Vink ends up falling down D-Lift shaft. And I do like how you can actually hear him hitting things on his way down. I mean, that's good attention to detail. Cut to these two security guards doing a checkup on the building. One of them has a drink because he says it helps him get through the shift. Well, they were talking about the drinker's time in the Navy where he became...
That now I'm what's called immune to penicillin.
The sober one hears a noise and the drinker says that it must be rats because one time they found dozens of dead rats in one of D-Lift's in this building. Then the sober one notices that D-Lift is moving and says that there's somebody in the building. They decide to try and go catch the person. When they stop on the 10th floor, they see that D-Lift is on the higher floor, and so the sober one runs ahead and then the doors open up. And I love that they have a nice little tune when the doors open up. The drinker looks inside and sees D-Lift is stopped above him, and then he sees Mr. Vink's body at the bottom. He calls back to the sober one, who is given a great name.
Keith!
I mean, that's a pretty damn good name, if I say so myself. And as he's explaining what he just saw, the door closes on his head. Keith tries to help open the doors, but they won't budge. Then D-Lift starts coming down, and when it gets close to the drinker, it stops. Whew, that was a close call. Well, he's telling Keith that it stopped, and Keith is looking around at whatever. It starts back up again. And I think that's pretty awesome now. D-Lift is now messing with people's heads. What follows is a horrific but fantastic death scene. D-Lift keeps going down, and the drinker lowers down as far as he can until he loses his head. And it falls down the shaft and lands next to Mr. Vink. Overall, it's a pretty well done death scene. Next, we meet a police detective whose voice is dubbed over with the perfect stereotypical voice of an American gumshoe from the 50s.
I used to work the Vice Squad. You get numb. It's a pity.
He tells a story about a guy who cut a girl in half with a drill to prove his point that there are a lot of lunatics in the world. I mean, we probably would have just taken your word on it, guy. You're a police officer. Ravenstein says that he was told D-Lifts were safe. The detective says he prefers the stairs because lifts are not that trustworthy. He asks his partner how many people get stuck in lifts every year, and he says 250,000 in just their country alone. His partner then says that he tried to get some info out of Keith, but that he wasn't making much sense. But he did gather that there was a third person in the building when the drinker died. They also mentioned that they did find Mr. Vink's body as well. We see that Felix has been called back in to look at D-Lift. And maybe it's just me, but if I inspected an elevator and said everything was working properly, and then two people died shortly after, I wouldn't want to show my face anywhere near there. The people working would probably be like, oh, look, it's that asshole again. I mean, does he even know what he's doing? Probably not, because two people just died. Anyways, as Felix is inspecting, a journalist sneaks up on him, and we meet Mickey. We find out that she works for a newspaper called The New Review. She grills him for information about what happened and asks him if he works for Rising Sun, which is the company that made the microprocessor, which he doesn't. Bush comes in and kicks her out because she's not supposed to be there. Felix then tells Ravenstein and the detectives that he still can't find anything wrong. The gumshoe offers up the theory that it could have been mice chewing up the wiring. Felix leaves and discovers that Mickey is sitting in his car. Felix ends up giving her a ride, and I guess her character is supposed to be like the attractive temptress, but I really don't see it. She presses him for info again, which he doesn't have, and when he drops her off, there's two things going on. One is that there is clearly somebody riding in the back. I mean, you can see them moving around. And two, Felix sounds like he's trying to get something going before she shows him that she's really only interested if he has info on the story.
I might have time.
Yeah,
I
if
mean,
you
I
have
don't.
any news about the lift, call me at the magazine.
Next, we see Felix and his wife bowling with another couple. And when the ladies go to get drinks, her friend asks what's up with Felix. And his wife says that he takes his job too seriously. I mean, hello? Two people just died on the lift that he was working on. The friend then goes on and puts the idea in the wife's head that he might be having an affair. Then Felix goes and talks to his boss, who says he thinks the lift is just fine. And Jesus, Felix, I sure hope that pin isn't marking something important on that map. I mean, usually pins put on maps have some importance. That's someone's hard work you're messing with there, Felix. His boss tells him that Brooker did the check on D-Lift before, and he said it was fine. Felix says that he heard Brooker actually found a lot of problems. His boss tells him to take a couple days off because soon the merger with the Americans will happen, and then there's going to be lots of work to be done. Felix says that he's just trying to be thorough, and his boss says that he's a great worker and due for a promotion. Next, Felix is on break with a coworker and asks him if he thought Brooker would sabotage a lift. The coworker says no, and as he's telling him more, the boss calls him away. Next, we see Ravenstein talking to his business partner and tells him to say hi to his wife, who just happens to be right there. We find out that these two are having an affair. She tries to get some lovin', and he says he doesn't want anyone to know about them. Then we see the guys in the lobby already know about them.
We don't have to worry about him. He's getting his rocks off.
Oh yeah, it's Wednesday.
As they get down to business, her daughter is waiting in the lobby, and as I said before, I love the colors of D-Lifts. D-Lifts took to play a game with her daughter, kind of like peekaboo, and when it stops, the middle doors open up. As the girl stares at D-Lift, it goes up a little so she can look underneath. Then we see her walking towards it. As these two are still trying to get into the mood, they hear a scream, and when they go out to the lobby, we see the girl is fine, but not the doll. Then the mom tells the joke of, what did the five fingers say to the face? And she took this straight out of chapter 5 of my book. Drop some humor before you drop the hammer. Also, Ravenstein sees that the doll's arm is in the doors. Felix then goes to see Brooker, who doesn't say anything, but we learn that he's afraid of walls and that he hurt his hands last week smashing a TV up because he saw something that upset him. Afterwards, Felix stops by the building and sees a Rising Sun vehicle there, but it drives off as he's walking inside. Inside, they tell him that the Sun guy had been working on the elevator and had it closed up for an hour. Next, Felix goes to Mickey's office and looks up articles about Rising Sun. Here he finds out that they were on TV the week before. Wonder who saw that. Next, Felix and Mickey go to grab a bite to eat, and we learn that the parts that Rising Sun install are basically the brains of D-Lift. And again, Felix is rolling up a cigarette, and am I the only one who thinks that makes him look pretty pompous? And they try to make her look like the sexy bad girl here.
I've done things I shouldn't.
And again, it just isn't working for me at all. As they were talking, that couple from bowling walks by, and the lady says she knew Felix had a girlfriend. Felix tells Mickey that he's going to go talk to someone at Rising Sun, and she invites herself along. When they go there, they speak with the scientist in charge of their research department. Felix asks him if something could go wrong with their microprocessors, and he says no, that they undergo rigorous testing because their reputation is at stake. Because Rising Sun installs things in places like
factories, hospitals, military installations, nuclear reactors, we're everywhere.
He says the microprocessors are 100% reliable. That's quite the statement. As they leave, we get the feeling that the scientists might be hiding something. We then head back to the Adelar house where they are eating dinner when the daughter asks Felix,
Papa, what's adultery about?
He says he'll tell her when she's older, and his wife says to tell her now since he's such an expert on it. As he gets confused, his wife tells him,
Somebody tell me about that woman, the bitch.
Then she says she's not going to take it and starts crying in the corner. As he gets up to comfort her, assuming, the phone rings and he decides to answer that instead. And I love that you can hear her just breaking down and crying while he's answering the phone.
We're just having dinner. Listen,
He kind of just treats it like a parent. Just ignore them and they'll stop crying. On the phone is Mickey, and she tells him to meet her at the university to talk to a professor friend of hers. His wife asks if she's a student, and he says it's a misunderstanding that she's a journalist, to which she replies,
Now finish up. Papa's friend is expecting him real soon. We don't want to make him late.
We then meet this guy who is a professor who teaches computer science. He's explaining to them about microchips. He tells them about a computer made in America some time ago that had the latest chips in it. Then out of nowhere it started making its own programs, and they couldn't stop it, so they literally buried the computer in the ground. He also tells them that he doesn't fully trust chips because they are so small now that it doesn't take much outside influence to make them unstable, such as
magnetism, static electricity, temperature, ultraviolet rays,
lightning, perhaps? He says that if this happens, the chip could start to reprogram itself. He also tells them about biochips, which are made out of organic matter, that in a test started to multiply itself and create more chips. As they leave, Felix says that he doesn't believe anything the professor just said, and she says that Rising Sun must have put something like that in D-Lift. And Burger probably found it, and that's why he went crazy. Cut to this cleaning guy practicing his dance moves when his boss comes and tells him to get back to work. Then, as the dancing guy is cleaning, the doors open up, and something happens to him. His boss comes back and sees that he's gone. Then we see Felix is pretending to be asleep when his wife comes to bed, so obviously he hasn't actually explained what happened with Mickey. You know, that's a good route to take. Next, we see the guy working in the building from before taking D-Lift when something starts to drip on his jacket. As he looks up to figure out what it is, the cleaner from the night before drops down dead. Then we see Felix going to work where he finds out that his coworker has been assigned to D-Lift that he has been working on. He tells Felix about the dead cleaning guy and that the cops think that he's the one who's been messing with D-Lift. Felix barges into his boss's office in a scene that's straight out of a cop movie, but since this is out of the Netherlands, it's a little bit different. Here we find out that Felix has been removed from the job or taken off the case, and instead of turning in his gun and shield because he's been suspended, his boss says,
No, I put you on sick leave for a month.
Alright, you know what? I've had it with you playing by your own rules. Now take this month of paid leave and get out of my office. Oh, and when you get back, we'll see about that promotion. Then we see the gumshoe saying that the cleaning guy was the one who was responsible for the other deaths because he had a police record. Having wrapped up the case, the gumshoe starts looking at where he's going to go on vacation while his partner expresses his doubts about the cleaning guy being responsible. Cut to Felix coming home and finding out that his wife and kids are gone. He checks the house, but their things are all gone, including the bottle caps that she was saving up. So clearly she means business. Then he gets a phone call and it's his wife. He asks where she's gone and how long she'll be gone for, and she hangs up on him. Then we see that some shady meeting is taking place in a car park. It's between Felix's boss, who says that D-Lift is out of control, and that his mechanics are getting suspicious, and the scientist they met up with, who says that they've made a few errors, but they will be fixed very soon. He also says that he's tired and needs a vacation. Don't we all? Switch to Felix going into the building at night and deciding to break in. Once inside, he decides to take D-Lift, which is a bold choice if you ask me. I mean, a bunch of people have died. While taking D-Lift to the top, it starts storming outside. Felix has decided to inspect the microprocessor that Rising Sun installed, but when he pries it open, we see that it's empty, while it is being lit up by lightning, which I always think is a really cool way to do a reveal in a movie. He goes back in D-Lift and starts to open up the access panel when it shuts the doors and takes him down to the 5th floor. He gets out and grabs a chair, and then the other 2 lifts open up. He goes to bring the chair into D-Lift and he gets distracted by something, and then the door closes and smashes the chair. He goes up a flight and opens the doors and crawls down into D-Lift. He grabs some tools and goes back up. He hooks up a device that lets him move D-lift from above, and he heads back up. This is also shot pretty well. As he's slowly going up, the shaft is only illuminated by his work light, which looks really cool. He stops to look around, and we get this shot, which is actually a pretty good fake out. I mean, it got me. Then he sees something, but when he tries to go up again, D-lift won't move. So he climbs the cables, and when he opens up the cover, we see that apparently they use those biochips for D-lift. Then we get another awesome shot as Felix looks down. It kind of makes D-lift look like it's alive. I think that's a really cool shot. Felix then stabs the panel, which causes D-lift to go down and the counterweight to come up and scrape up Felix's back. He then takes out a wrench and continues to beat on the panel, and the counterweight continues to scrape up his back. And as Felix is hanging on, the cables start to break, and he works his way over to the doors. He's able to get the doors open and attempts to crawl out, and we get a nice shot of him almost getting out before falling back down. And just when the last cable breaks, Mickey shows up out of nowhere and pulls him out. As she's tending to Felix, the scientist shows up and pulls out a gun. He then proceeds to shoot the panel with the biochips, and as he's explaining that D-lift was extremely sick, it comes back to life and throws a cable around his neck and pulls him into the shaft. He dies, and we get another very awesome zoom out shot with some good music. Then Mickey helps Felix walk away, and the movie ends. And now for some fun facts. Dick Moss composed the entire score of the movie on 2 borrowed synthesizers, and he recorded it in just 1 day. So I guess Felix is getting a divorce then? I mean, they never really cover it, but I say good for him. You know, he didn't really seem that into his marriage anyways. There were no stuntmen for this movie, so the actors actually performed their own stunts. The scene where the security guard gets stuck and decapitated was actually filmed backwards to keep him safe. Elevators are 20 times safer than escalators.
That kid is back on the escalator again!
Here's one I'll actually just read because I can't remember all this. The close button in an elevator is actually a placebo button, made to give passengers the illusion of control in their elevator journey. Since the 1990s, elevator manufacturers have removed the close function of most elevators since they close automatically. So, would I recommend watching D-lift?
Yeah.
But it's a good movie. Obviously, some things don't translate that well, but overall, I think it's a really interesting story. And I really like the way certain scenes were lit, and there were some really cool shots in this movie. Mostly with the death scenes, but I mean, it is a horror movie. I would say definitely check it out if you have time. I'll put a link in the description if you want to check it out for free. What'd you think? Have you seen D-lift? Did you like it? Let me know in the comments. In my last video, I reviewed Don't Go in the House, and I'll put a link up for that too, so you can watch that. Alright, well, that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.